Hi.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Book.
Hello, Terry.
I'm Terry McLeod. I'm co-host this year of the Manitoba Book Awards with Lara Ray. You, of course, are Winnipeg's king of books. Anyone who comes here to McNally Robinson knows you and your voice and your clever presentations. But I'm doing a little series in which I'm asking people, what are you reading?
Right.
In this vast array of choice that you have in this bookstore, what are you reading?
Well, recently, in preparation for her appearance here at the store, I had a chance to revisit a lot of the work of Eden Robinson, which I loved her classic Monkey Beach, but hadn't read much beyond that. So it gave me the opportunity to go back and read things like her short story collection, Trap Lines and Blood Sports, and her most recent book, Son of a Trickster, which is a fabulous novel.
So what do you like about Eden Robinson that has you reading everything she's written?
She has this incredible way of blending the fantastic with the down-to-earth and gritty. She doesn't shy away from basically horrible things happening to her characters, but at the same time never loses them in that darkness as well. So there's this wonderful combination of just the outlandish, the unusual, a very strong sense of humor throughout, and at the same time she just deals with really fascinating things and topics within her novels.
So if you had to tell us about a second book that you're reading or have read recently, what would that be?
I'm just finishing off the short story collection by Amber Sparks, The Unfinished World, and she's an American writer who writes somewhat in the vein of, I guess she's most often compared to Kelly Link in terms of bringing that kind of odd magical realism into just day-to-day stories. So she has a really interesting way of doing exactly something similar to Eden, where she draws the fantastic down and applies it to very outlandish situations, but finds the human core at the center of them all. So she can write a story about a space janitor up in the sky and still manage to make it incredibly engaging, or this fantastic mythical just series of occurrences, and then somehow make it just really emotionally affecting without keeping you at a distance at all.
With this kind of choice around you, how do you decide who to read? Now you mentioned because Eden Robinson is going to be at the bookstore, but how do you decide otherwise what to read?
Well, I have the privilege of going through catalogs many months in advance of when books come out, so what I'll typically do is just go through hundreds of titles and flag ones that look interesting, and then just put them aside for myself so they almost show up as surprises when they arrive months later. So I'm just always looking for descriptions of books that make them sound a little bit left of center or a little bit unusual and interesting. And
what do people who come to the store tell you about what they're looking for when they're trying to figure out what should I read?
Well, it can be anything it can be something as specific as a very exact title or author. They can be looking for a book that's a particular color that they remembered, and we have to suss out vaguely what the book is they're referring to. But a lot of the time people are looking for a book that has a certain feel for them, and they'll give us examples of comparable titles or things that they're interested in. So it's really about kind of molding what they're looking for to a book that's on the shelf as well too, and happily a lot of the time we succeed in doing that.
Now I'm here doing this because the Manitoba Book Awards are coming up. You've been a judge for the Manitoba Book Awards, is that right?
Yes, indeed.
What was that experience like for you?
Well, I think the most enjoyable part of it, not only having an excuse to read or reread some books that are being published within the province, and in categories where I'm offered such a range as well too. So I'm reading poetry, theater, nonfiction, basically the whole gamut. The other thing that's really interesting is sitting down with the other judges, all of whom are approaching the category from very different perspectives, and then really just getting a chance to sit down and just seriously talk about literature with people. So it's been a fascinating, really enjoyable experience.
Now you must have an impact here in the bookstore since you're so embedded here, but also as a judge, you're drawing attention to the books that you think are the best. What's your sense of the kind of impact that you've been able to have?
Well, I hope if I've had any impact at all, it's just helped to draw attention to some books that may not have received as much attention as they deserved. And that's one thing the Manitoba Book Awards does very well, is it manages to focus on those books that certainly in some cases have received a great deal of attention when they've come out, but there's always those surprises throughout the evening where the book that may not have got the attention or recognition that it deserves really gets elevated as a result of a nomination or a win. So it's always really edifying to see things like that happen.
John Toews, thanks for this.
Oh, well, thank you, Terry.
Okay, see you soon.
Great, bye.